Hello, everyone. My name is Liam Ordonez. I am one of the college coaches for Unidos Now. I was also part of the FLA program, and today I'm going to be talking about best practices for decision making. So this is a brief rundown as to the different methods, tools, and techniques that I'll be talking about for today. So let's start with best practices for decision making in a form of a decision matrix tool that was created by Campus Path. It's a source that I found on the internet that's an Excel sheet that we can run through it and see how you can use it. Key things that you want to consider when using a decision-making matrix. It's not only just for specifically college, it can also be for, let's say you're trying to decide between majors. If you're trying to decide between restaurants, it could be used for maybe trips, like whatever it is. These are just kind of like a tool that is being used for different things to make a decision. So I'm going to share what the Excel looks like. So this is an overview of what the Excel looks like. As you can see on the very top, there's the just overall degree of that you're seeking. So I just put common schools. So I put FSU, UF, UCF, and USF. And then from there, you can also see that there are general qualities, just kind of like they call them decision parameters. So there's things such as the school type, the cost, the weather, financial aid, and there's academics, a major match, accreditation, class size, faculty, student faculty ratios. Again, these are all interchangeable. Like you can delete these if you believe that it doesn't align with the mentee or it doesn't align with yourself. Social, so like for example, Greek life, social life, housing, then you have career, things such as co-op programs, things such as business involvements, then you have community. So anything from like student body diversity, special programs, alcohol and drug policy. Then you lastly have recreation and leisure, which deals with like just overall facilities, local attractions, how are the dining halls. So within these decision parameters, your step one is to first rank the degree of importance within cell C. So as you can see within Excel, this is cell C. So you're going to go through all of these and you're going to rank them in importance from 1 to 10. 1 being not as important, 10 being the most important. So as you can see, I went through everything and I ranked how important everything was. So within this general category, you can see that financial aid and graduation rates were my most important. Then within academics, major match was important, major reputation. Then you can see for social life was important, housing, sports teams were important, and clubs and cultural just activities were important. So you're going to do all of that for all the activities that you decided were beneficial for you. And then you're going to edit your schools, which is over here on cell 2. And then from there, you're going to place value. So how it works is you're going to go one by one and you're going to enter your value here. So you can see I went through FSU and I put, okay, brand quality. They recently ranked 10 public schools. They're probably like, you can go to 9, you can go to 10, whatever you want to rank it. Geography, Tallahassee is a great place in my opinion. So I probably would put 8. Size and student population, it's a bigger school. So you would put like kind of just like if you're like a 10 is like you're inclining more of like if you like bigger schools, then it would probably be like 10. But if you're like, okay, it's too big of a school, then probably 1. The setting, this is like similar kind of just like overall like the setting of the school. So you go one by one and you start categorizing them in how you rank them. Again, sometimes it's good to go through all of the parameters because some of the parameters you might be like, I don't really care about this specifically, so let me just delete it. So if you're going to delete it, you can just scroll over here and just click delete and then it'll delete it for you. You can modify this however way you want. And then towards the end, basically how it works is you're going to get a score. So you can see right here, I had pre-done this based on just like a couple of things that I looked at. And my decision, the higher the number, the more like basically is the decision that you should take. So for me, the best fit was University of Florida, depending on all of these decision parameters. So that's basically a very simple, short overview of how the overall Excel works. So let's just continue with the presentation. Um, Okay. So now let's talk about another form of practice for decision making, which is called the SWOT analysis. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this form of technique is used specifically when, let's say, I put the example of what degree should I major in. So you start with your strengths. You list off all the skills. You took a personality test and you found specific skill sets that you're really good at, any interests you may have, any attitudes that you may possess, any gifts that you may possess. You want to list all of these out. You want to ask yourself, like, what do I do the best? What am I the best at? What am I known for? And what am I really good at doing? And what can I continue to get better at? So those are your strengths. Then your weaknesses, list all the skills, just knowledge, just overall experiences that you lack, possess, that maybe when I was a high schooler, I lacked, international experiences. I lacked the ability to maybe write proficiently as much as I wanted to. Everybody has their own weaknesses, so you just start writing down like kind of like what can you improve on, what factors would you really need to work on in order to, have a successful pathway in college or vocational schooling or whatever decision you're making. And then there's external factors, which are opportunities. So you list any capabilities or just overall possibilities that you could have to open opportunity as a result. So, for example, what opportunities can come available to me if the circumstances were different, right? If, COVID wouldn't have happened or COVID didn't have online school for the year, like what opportunities are there for me? Is there new technology trends or ideas that I can keep up with? Like, can I use podcasts to like learn about like the healthcare system and kind of just like worldly knowledge about just overall healthcare? What are people doing or what are trends within the field that I'm looking at, just for opportunities for growth of knowledge, for just overall understanding the field. And then the last factor is just overall threats. So like what barriers are in the way, right? What worries you? Is it financial aid? Is it moving too far? Is it a big student body? Like what are the kind of like those threats that might impede you from wanting to make this decision? Because if you do this one by one with the degrees, so for example, if you're like biology, you're like, okay, what's maybe impeding me is maybe the thought of having to take four chemistry classes and maybe like anatomy and physiology. So then you start kind of reflecting on, is biology really the correct major for me? Or should I look more like human sciences or maybe animal sciences or an alternative where I can still go to med school, but not have to like hone in so much on like maybe biology or chemistry or other specific just fields or subjects in general. Then we're going to be talking now about just overall how we can de-escalate situations. This is in terms of if you're ever dealing with the mentor, mentee, or just overall. I use this within my, own personal relationships. It's a course that I took with the Intergroup Dialogue Project at Cornell University. They taught us a method called the Laura method, which is very effective in just de-escalating situations, but also understanding different perspectives. So how it works is you have the L, which is basically listen. You actively listen without interrupting. So the person comes to you and says, I have had a really tough time and I just don't know like what to do. Like they start telling you the specifics, they start telling you maybe they're disappointed, they start crying, they start doing, all the stuff that people do when they're very emotional. So you just basically actively listen and you just make sure that you give them the space and you let them say everything that they need to say. When you're actively listening, you want to make sure that you're also, you're giving social cues, you're nodding, you have, if we're on Zoom, you see my face, I see your face. If we're in person, our phones are away. Like it's very like we're actively engaged with what the individual is saying. Then the second step is affirming. So we want to acknowledge the feelings that the individual is saying. So, for example, things such as like, it makes sense that you're feeling rejected, especially when this is something that's so important to you. It's completely okay to be disappointed that you didn't get accepted to the University of Florida. We worked so hard. So it's like re-emphasizing the feelings and understanding for the student. So if they're feeling a certain way, we want to make sure that we're re-emphasizing that it's okay to feel disappointed, it's okay to feel upset or sad. Then for R is respond, which is basically just offering a thoughtful response. While this is a big disappointment, it's important to remember that one rejection doesn't define your entire journey, right? So there are many opportunities out there. So we want to make sure that we respond with a sense of like, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to expand on like maybe this failure that we currently had, but how are we going to pivot and find other successes out of this? And that's where the add information is, or add a solution, where it's like, okay, now we're pivoting and now it's like, okay, we took the time to listen, to affirm, to respond. So now what's the next steps? Like, how are our next months looking like? Let's start, looking at other schools. What other opportunities do you have? Let's start planning out plan A, B, and C. So it's a sense of like through this method, you're able to not only de-escalate situations dealing with like college rejections, but also if you're ever having conflict, it's the same thing. You listen, you affirm them in a way of, even though if you don't understand why they may be feeling upset, you take the time or you take the 10 steps backwards to really affirm them as to, I understand why you may be feeling upset because the situation, such as blah, 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 put you in that position. And then the responding can be like, I have never felt that way in the sense of like seeing it in this perspective, but I thank you for giving me that perspective. And then the adding information could be like, if you have any resources that you have available for me to learn more about this specific situation, then please let me know. So it's adding a little bit more of like, even though I have never felt this about this specific situation, we can't share the emotion right now, but I'm willing to want to share that emotion, if that makes sense. Then in terms of also like dealing with just overall disappointment, other techniques that you could use specifically to, help support students coping with it is just one, normalizing rejection. We want to make sure that, like we share our own success stories in the sense of like professional rejections we faced, educational rejections, and we also reframe our experiences as to like, what can we learn from this rather than saying like, what did you do wrong? Like, did you not write your essays? Did you not do like proofread? Like it's more of a sense of like, what can we learn from this and how can we move forward? We also want to make sure that we encourage a growth mindset. So admissions is very competitive and it's just getting more competitive as we go, and as everything happens with the job market. So it's very important to always have that growth mindset, and really have a sense of motivation for yourself, but also for your students. Another thing that I always am an advocate for is having several pathways and alternatives, just because a lot of times when we want to follow our dreams, we stick to only plan A's, and we want to make sure that we have, B, C, D, and E, and even more just in case, like, the first four don't work out, at least you fell on your fifth, but you're happy with your fifth. So that's why having that decision matrix, frameworks, or having any other frameworks that you use can really be beneficial to like showing them like, how close maybe two schools are compared to like likelihood on how they like them and how much they like really connect with them culturally and just overall preference wise. And then lastly, it's important to always reflect on, if it's really easy for us to reflect deeply on our failures, but I also think that it's important to reflect on successes. You want to make sure that you help the students identify what was successful during just the overall recruitment process, during maybe the scholarship process, like what did they do well, like what skill sets did they use, what techniques, apps, like what did they use, so that they can really sit on it and reflect on like, okay, yeah, this worked for me and I'm going to continue to do this in my following, academics or in my professional career. But also within failures, it's also good to, reflect as well, and make sure that you have actionable steps. And then with that, I just have a couple of just like overall final advice is before I conclude the presentation. But the first one is to make sure you create a personalized roadmap where students just understand all the possibilities for their specific pathway. You also want to remind students that, setbacks are not failures, but growth opportunities and opportunities to, pivot. Also, I think during any application process, it's always based on, fit, and it's also based on just overall, is it meant for you? And I'm a strong believer as to helping students understand that, like, if things are meant for them and if, it's a cultural fit, then it's going to happen it's going to be given. But if not, then they need to, pivot and find other opportunities that potentially will help them maybe succeed even more in the future. And then last one is reinforce the message that, the college journey is, like I said, all about fit and it's not about prestige. So what matters most is that the student will thrive and be successful and be happy with the decision they make. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation.